Hello, BookTube. I wanted to give you another Preptober update because we are now firmly in the month of October, which is Preptober. Those of you who are new to the whole concept, in November, NaNoWriMo happens. A long and storied event in which hundreds of thousands of people all over the world come together to write 50,000 words of a novel in 1 month. With the goal, the ethos of NaNoWriMo being better to write it and then revise it later than to dawdle, drag your feet, dream, and not write it. That it's an incredible shot in the arm for an author to have 50,000 words. That's absolutely true. And the rules of NaNoWriMo, there are many, and we'll go over them because we're going to talk about NaNoWriMo all through November. But one of the rules of NaNoWriMo is that you can't do any writing before the stroke of midnight on the 1st of November. You can do 1,557 words a day, 1,667 words a day, every day during November, but you can't do any writing ahead of time. You can research, you can outline, you can plan and plot, but you can't do anything else. And as such, the month of October has sprung up in nano lore as Preptober, where that's what you do for the month of October. You plan what you're going to do in NaNoWriMo. And I want us all to do that, because the surest way to fail at NaNoWriMo, the surest way to run out of steam and say, yeah, I just didn't do it, is not to have your work ready. The more plotting and planning you do, the better chance you have of actually getting to that 50,000 words. And that isn't as sterile as it sounds. We'll be talking about that too down the line, because that being prepared is not the same thing as being uninspired. But today I wanted to talk about the idea that I had and talk about the ideas that you will have for Preptober. Because now is the time for you to dream up what you're going to write about in November and then work it out, hatch it out, all through the month of October. Spend time on it every day. Don't just let it go. Spend time on it. And the reason you don't let it go is something that is going to be hard for you to realize if you read a lot of contemporary literary fiction, which is that an idea is not a plot. Okay? An idea is not a book. Now that's going to be foreign in concept if you read, for instance, Sally Rooney or 8 million of her Ottessa Moshfegh clones, because those books are only ideas, if that, and no plots. And that's not new. You can find since the subgenre, the noxious little subgenre of literary fiction has pretty much established an identity of its own with the overflow of MFA programs. That goes back about 10 years, and these books are characterized. It's not that it's an occasional thing. They're characterized by plotlessness. They're characterized by the fact that the author at an MFA or at a cafe or surrounded by sycophants said, I have a great idea, and thought that was a book. It's not. And the key thing for you to work on in Preptober is making your idea into a plot. That's what you have to do in one of the main things you have to do in Preptober. And the idea that I had, and so far it's only an idea, is one device to rule them all. What would happen if a person from another, it's science fiction that I'm going to be writing, so it would be maybe another time, another planet, another plane of reality, would come to this plane of reality with a device that everyone in their plane of reality has and relies on. If they come to this world with that device, what would happen? Now, my story has a working title of Kendra Victrix. My main character is going to be a young woman named Kendra, who has one of these things, whatever they are, whatever I end up calling them, and somehow ends up in this world where no one does, where that technology is futuristic. And that's all she has. Will that technology work? And if not, can she live without it? And can she hide it? Will she want to? All those sorts of things are what you do to turn an idea into a plot. Why is Kendra here? And if the main gist of my plot is, can she get back home? Well, that's better than an idea, but it's not a very good plot. You want to throw more wrinkles in the project, like, who does she meet here? Maybe does she still want to go home by the time the story is over, as badly as she did when the story started? What things change? That sort of thing is what I'll be working on for this weekend. I'd like to have a much clearer idea of what my plot is by the end of this weekend. And that's the key. That's what I wanted to really talk to you about today, is that there's no stopwatch on these things, except that you can't be still doing this stuff at the 1st of November. But it's something that you ought to enjoy. You ought to enjoy thinking this stuff out. You can even write it out if you want. I don't particularly do that, but I know plenty of people who, in the course of Preptober, flesh out the actual plot of their book the characters, the dynamics, the arc, if you want to call it that, flesh it out on paper or on, you know, an open Word document. That's great. I don't do that because I want to resist the temptation to start writing. And I know a lot of people who start to do that sort of stuff. They start to plot things out on paper and then they start writing. And you don't want to do that. You want to write in November. That's the whole fun of it. So I mostly do it mentally. And I have a long way to go. Because the very first thing that I have to figure out, that I have to flesh out today or tomorrow or this weekend, is where Kendra comes from. I'm thinking that if I want to concentrate the story on the device, her relationship with the device, then I probably don't want to make her an alien, right? I probably want her to be human, which would mean she would either come from the future or from another reality. And I'm leaning towards another reality, some sort of quantum problem that transposes her in this world. I'll have to, and that in itself is fun, as this kind of plotting is, or should be, because it involves a lot of fun research. I'll have to figure out, is there even a theoretical model that would allow that to happen, and what do I need to do to make it sound convincing? I'm thinking, right now, that's what I'm leaning towards. I'm ruling out that she's an alien, because that adds a whole bunch of elements that I don't want, that will commandeer the story. Instead, I'm thinking she is human, but from a different and slightly more advanced technologically plane of reality, who ends up here. So first I have to figure out what that is, what she is. Then I have to figure out how she gets here and what kind of a problem it is. And then in the back of my mind, the back pocket of my story will be how to get her back. Because if she gets here involuntarily, which I'm assuming is the case, she's going to want to get back. That's going to be the motor for at least part of the beginning of the story. So I just want to give you a Preptober update. That is what I'm thinking of. I still have only a vague idea, and I wanted to stress to you for this day in Preptober that an idea is not a story. So October is the time when you sculpt your idea, when you expand it into a story. The expanding should come first. Throw out all sorts of raw material. And then once you've got all the raw material out that is connected with that idea, then you can start to hatch and carve it into a plot, which will involve distressing the main character in some way or other. It will involve stresses on other characters as well. It will involve secondary characters, none of whom are you. None of whom are an explicit 101 transcription of you. We're going to stay away from auto-fiction. So that is where we are for Preptober. And I will give you another Preptober update this weekend or on Monday. And in the meantime, I'll wrap this up for now. But I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.